just figure out like how a style component is communicated with creating a simple as well as a reusable component. Okay, so particularly that can be used throughout your application. Okay, suppose if I'm making a page, okay, suppose this is a page of anything, I would say, okay, this is a page. Okay, and this page is going to standardize yourself in a particular section. Okay, now if I'll say about the standard section is going to beginning with that particular section, so you need to build something with the components, correct? Perfect. So now if I'll say you about like here is your first component or here is your second component and that component is going to reuse. Okay, so this thing you can imagine about like what a style component is all about. Okay, this thing. Now if I'll say about that this is a chocolate. Okay, just taking an example about this is a chocolate. If I'll tell about like this is a chocolate and you people need to style this with something with the walnuts or the cashew nuts or anything, correct? So or you, I would say that you need to paint this is a white chocolate and you need to cover it into the dark chocolate and anything, correct? So either you will add something as an, I would say, color or anything regarding it, correct? So but that actual, that I would say, or you have styled this chocolate with simple css but you are using some components to style in a react. Okay, and these react components are reusable, correct? So that is one thing you need to focus upon, like how we are going to change upon the html and css form in this is just a foundation of a client side application. Okay, just remember. So html and css, remember that this is just in foundation. Okay, it is just in foundation of all the client side application. Okay, this thing. So if I'll say that each of these languages have its own responsibility. Okay, its own responsibility it has, correct? Now html, it is a markup language. Okay, so it organizes I would say a content part. So css, what a css is going to do is a css is going to rule the content. Okay, and javascript would be adding some dynamic I would say interactive appearance to the code, correct? So this is one thing you need to traditionally follow it. Okay, so I forgot to give you an introduction about this. Like, here I'm a junior software engineer and a full stack web developer. Okay, and particularly if I'll say about this particular section about I'm a blog writer too. I wrote more than 120 plus blogs till now. Okay, I've mentored 3,000 plus students till now in this particular span of time. And whereas I would say like in this particular section I always believe in learning, excelling and implementing. Okay, this is one thing you need to focus upon more. Okay, uh, let's go with that topic now. responsive to the content and all. Okay, this thing. So whenever we used to talk about like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, it all particularly give us an idea about like how we have to concern with an operation in a particular web or applications. Correct. So now with the modern JavaScript libraries, okay, with the modern JavaScript libraries or a framework. So if I talk about the frameworks or libraries in this particulars, like we have a React. Okay, so in the React only, we know about the separation of each and every shift of the languages, whether it's upon the props, I would say components, okay, hooks, anything about that. Okay, so particularly, I would say about like whatever we are going to belong with any single component. Okay, any single component. Okay, in a particular file. Okay, that would be either .jx or .tx for the React. Okay, each component itself is written as a function. Okay, every component is written it as a function as, or I would say, a class. Correct. And every component itself, it's itself, I would say, it's in function or a class. Okay, now if I'll say about like it contains about the methods. So what are the methods in that? In the methods we have, like we have rendering. Okay, we have the life cycles in this. Okay, I would say we particularly have upon the statements, we have the functions in this and all. Okay, so everything we have to deal with a large CSS styles, because if I'll tell about like, okay, we have these CSS. Okay, or I would say there would be thousand of I would say the 2000 lines of the CSS only. Okay, every CSS is difficult to handle. Okay, the large CSS are there, so difficult to handle and to maintain, especially when we are tracking something, or the we are overriding some concepts on like that. Okay, every time we are going to remove the rules in this, or we need to write a styles using a CSS in a JS libraries. Okay, so every time we are going to write it, there are a lot of functionalities to make it as a supercharged as a component or anything. And the React one, I would say, if I'll talk about the React one, so in the React, first thing is about the React component library is that like a lot of functionality is there to supervise or to supercharge the component styles. Okay, this thing, if I'll tell you about like how we can go with adaptability. Okay, one thing, the benefit is we have the adaptability. Okay, we are adaptable. Adaptable to what? Adaptable to style. And in the styles we are passing a props, so that props are passed again. That in the style, these are based on a props, and that props are passing through, I would say, the components. Okay, now if I'll tell you about, we have everything about to avoid manual maintenance or to upgrade the individual CSS classes in this. So this is one thing, we can adapt a style. Okay, now we can go with I would say automatically we are going to prefix, or automatically properties we're going to stable it. Okay, so whenever like automatically we're going to stable certain things, or I would say vendors. Okay, vendors to be automatically passing towards see some CSS and all. Okay, so that is able to get something as in browser part. Okay, number third is like we can automatically generate some unique class name. Okay, if we don't want to give certain same class names and all, we can automatically generate same a unique class name. So this will particularly make a, as a developer to think upon that what classes we have already used it and what classes we are going to use it. Correct. So this is one thing like you can assured of, like how we can use it and what is the difference between we can use that. Now, if I'll tell you about like what is the difference or advantage or disadvantage of it, or how we can perform that the CSS or style components is this particular section. So this is one thing you need to carry forward with the various classes and the props. Correct. Yep. Now. Okay, so now if I'll say about the disadvantages and advantages of moving to a style components or style CSS or anything. Okay, so benefits we have. Okay, so benefits, if I'll talk about like in the benefits, so style component already we know like it is a CSS and JS styling framework, correct? So which is used to tag the templates in the literals and in every JavaScript. If you guys are pretty insured about the JavaScript, you know about the what is the literals, correct? So every style components there that are literally easy to make in the React component, where you can simply go within any component, just pick that component, make that component, style that component. If something like it is a button only, okay, so you can go with that and assure upon like these components and actually needed upon, correct? Anything if I'll say about the buttons in the JavaScript, or I would say a heading in a JavaScript, or I would say anything about the image only, okay, and a plain CSS. Suppose if I'll say that but this is a button, okay, now I will open a button tag, okay, and I'll close the button tag, okay, and between this I'll just do one thing, just make a styling to this, okay. uh Particularly if I'll say that this button is known as GitHub. Perfect. If I'll tell you about that, this button is upon the GitHub or anything particular section upon that. So you will carry forward about the what background we need with what actually I would say the render of a button we need and all, okay. But if still it is in a J, I would say this React part, okay. So I will render the component and all. I would write the I will style the component as an, I would say, a link and open the link and all, correct? So we can clearly see like the button as in JavaScript variable and the style over here, okay. We can define it as in plain CSS also, and there is style CSS also, correct? So first of all, so there are really many ways to render component, okay. Or there is a very, I would say, vast thing to pass the string as in class name, correct? So you can simply go with some of the frameworks in the CSS and JS. That is one thing that you can go with emotion, okay. These are particular frameworks used in the React, okay, JX bar. So you can go with the Radium, Aphrodite and all, okay. You can go with these frameworks, right? And motion, if you guys have been worked with this motion framework, you can see about like a framework is being highly used with the particularly components and all. So that is particularly used for to anything to know about the HTML tags to call itself, okay. Or I would say changing something as in props particular part and all, okay. This thing, okay. So if I'll ask about the advantages of style components, so very first advantage is obviously it eliminates all I would say the class name bugs, okay. It eliminates all the class name bugs. Number second is like it provides you a unique class name, okay. And it obviously styles your any component you are using, correct? So if I'll ask you like if a CS is better or a style component, so according to me, like within any style component you can attach the styles right to the component and don't need actually any name or anything in that. But within a CSS module, if you apply or anything, you're applying all the styles directly to the HTML element only, okay. With that style component you can apply the style to custom component only, and it will like it will be being in some barrier or slapping of it, okay. It will spread the props later in this, okay. So what should you or why should you use a style component? One thing is, why should you use it like it has in freedom to build custom components, okay. I think I'm literally very slowly about this. This is just an introduction about like what is in styling components and just in CSS components. That's it. It's a first tip today. Okay. Particular this thing. Now, if I'll say about one thing more, like how we can change our styling of a component. Okay, tomorrow we will be doing one small implementation of a style component to building one button. Okay, and we will check about like how we are going to make a button with actually within CSS and without CSS. Okay, just with the React components and all. Okay, now how to use, what to use, and what are the pros cons of a style components. So obviously, whatever the things we have to deal with or anything, we have some pros cons, correct? So as an of I would say like in an additional layers of a technology, we have the pros cons. So number first, I'll make a differentiation of a pros cons of style component, where is it is really important about. Okay, so we have everything about the pros cons on the style component. So very fun. First thing, it has a unique class name, correct? So it has a unique class name, which makes it a very good advantage of it. Okay, and next is it prefixes are classes, correct? And it automatically remove, or I would say make it dead css, correct? So css we are already not using in this, we are using only style components, but we are like almost clearing out that out. So we have a dynamic code in the react js while working with any theme content, any theme I would say. We'll talk about the cones. So we have something like in a cache problems. That is like if we have some unique class names or inline CSS, it would give a cache problems and all. So if another CSS is working, okay, or a JS layer is sorry, any JS layer is working during runtime, okay, it would be given error. Okay, it performance is like if the size is bigger, the performance error or a problem would get. Okay, size is bigger, so performance error would definitely get upon. So automatically any another library, if we need it or to maintain it or by use it with anything, we can use a SAS or CSS. And that's for the, because the SAS or a CSS is pretty much easier for every developer, correct? But if you don't have any JS knowledge, so you can go with the SAS and I would say the CSS. And CSS obviously it's an I would say a universal style, universal used. Okay, so this thing and the style components are not universally used in all, correct? This thing. So, in particularly when to use and why to use, we often use this to create a multiple CSS selectors, and the components are there and slightly different with each criteria the users. Correct? Every UI component needs some flexibility. Correct? So we need to get forward to this. We'll talk about the layers of a CSS file. Number first, like we have a global CSS file. Okay, number second, we have the category CSS. These are the layers of a CSS. Number third, we have a page CSS. Okay, fourth, we have the component CSS. Number fifth, we have any CSS we can provide it as a component, or I would say global on the top files and all. Correct. So anytime you can pick that as a bottom line, or I would say the screening hides and all. Okay, so you can completely go with this and use it. Yes, so about the project part, so we will be performing the project too, building a landing page of it. Okay, so that is one thing, like we are going to build actually a landing page with only style components and all. Okay, so we'll be guiding like how, because this is just an introduction part. So tomorrow we will be building one actually a button or a heading and a page. I'll tell you how to render that components and all in a particular page upon this. Okay, this thing. Perfect. So can anyone can tell me what is actually a difference between a component and a hooks? Just a normal question I'm asking about. Can anyone can tell me what is the component and the hooks? Please write in the chat section. Can anyone can tell me what is the difference between components and hooks? Okay, so I'll tell you about the what are the components and hooks. Correct. If I'll say about the in the functional components or the hooks components, hooks. Okay. But the basic I would say introduction. Okay, about the components and hooks. Correct. So this is Sandhya pages. What do you mean by this pages and all? So first of all, the hooks are the functional functions, correct? That will let you like into perfect in something like into and hooks does not work inside a classes. Okay, to let you know without classes and all. Okay, if I'll tell you about the hooks, though they use particular states and other React features without writing a particular class, so they don't have any that class issues and all. Yes, correct. Component is just like a thing. Hooks help to carry in a journal. Yes, good one, Shri Vignesh. Yes. Then if I'll tell you about this section about the components. So in the component section, that they are independent and can be used, and it's a reusable. Okay, that can be used everywhere in the code. Okay, the main purpose is to serve the same as in JavaScript functions too. Okay, but it works in an isolation and returns to an HTML in a particular section. Okay, this thing I can assure of, like you people are knowing about the components in a hook. If you know about what is the section of, I would say, particular screens of that. I hope it is clear to you all. So particularly Nirmayo, correct? So Nirmayo, if I'll talk about like hooks, correct? So in the hooks part, practically I'll tell you about like what is the hooks, correct? And in the hooks we add that allows that function and components to have access to particular state and another React features in that. Okay, but within that class components are being generally no need of it. Okay, and that are not particularly assured of everything. So hooks will be like, I would say, if I'll talk about, like, you can extract the stateful logic in that from any component. Okay, any tested independently component in that. So you can use the logic without changing any of your component hierarchy in that. Okay. So you can, I'm just providing you one link, and you can mark your I would say attendance over here. Give me a minute. This is the attendance link of day one. Okay, you can go to that. Correct, JK. Hooks allows the functional, yeah, correct one. And another states also you need to focus upon. Okay, Purushottam, I'm just repeating the component section. Okay, what is the components of React.js or in a React.js? So, if I'll talk about the components only, so any React element is what we get to return from a component. Okay, but about what is in components, okay, or a style components or anything in a React. Okay, in a React JS in the components, correct? So components are independent and can be reusable bits of code in that. Okay, if you are making a component of a button, okay, you can use it in a code anywhere, wherever you are bring writing it or not. Okay, this section you can serve the same purpose as an of the JavaScript functions too, but it will work in isolation and returns the HTML section too. Correct. So the class components are there. We have the function components, two types of it. Any more questions to anyone? You can ask you as much as questions over here. This was only just difference between style components and the CSS and an advantage of it. Tomorrow we will be making a component, just a button component or anything. This thing we are going to make a Manmohan, correct? So we are going to make a project that is a landing page considering all style components with a gradient colors and all. Okay, and the footer would be there, and a button, exactly a button would be there, buttons and the images, and I'll tell you about how we are using that particular components in a multiple formats. Please ask your questions more. Any doubt in anything of whatever we have discussed? Yes, perfect. It's fine, correct. We will be discussing about the all the particular concept in this. Okay, guys, we are going to continue fresh tomorrow with an, I would say, some practical implementation of a concept we are going to discuss it tomorrow too. Okay, we'll be writing the code. Actually, if you guys know about like components and how the React queries works, and I would say the JavaScript queries, correct? So we would be learning that particular section, correct? So if I'll talk about is the components better or hooks, so hooks can cover all the use cases for the classes while providing more flexibility in extracting the testing and reusing the code. Whereas in the, I would say, in the components, it's the like we should go about the classes components and over the function components with the hooks. Okay, it will just suspense the data fetching. That's it. Okay. Now, if I'll tell you about the hooks, so hooks allows you to use the local state, whereas I would say in the components, it's the life cycle of a functional components or anything. It internally means like how you are using the hooks. That's it. Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much for joining the session today.